Prime Minister, on another matter, do you have any perspective or any consideration on the state of emergency and if and how it can remain in place, and also the curfew?
Yeah.
The state of emergency is coming to an end at the end of this month. And as of now, I don't have any intention of asking the Parliament to extend it.
We're back outside. It looks like we're back in the game.
So that, just so that I understand correctly, so that would also imply that the curfew will also not...
The curfew comes out of the emergency. You can't have the curfew if the emergency has ended.
Listen, we're back in the game for the Christmas.
Explicit, boy.
Yes?
Oh, no.
We're back outside.
Christmas coming.
Yes? We had to forget the curfew. We're gonna forget the curfew.
All your is stress and all of that pressure does how we vex, but look, Christmas coming. Christmas coming. It feel like you're walking around the clock and still out of luck, but look, Christmas coming. Christmas coming. Even if things not nice, you see in this life, we can't forget to take time to celebrate. Have to get real things done, but we will have some fun. So for this Christmas, I feel the walk away.
Yes.
Never, before the Christmas over, come let we parang, let me make a parang down here. Never, before the Christmas over, come let we parang, let me make a parang down here. Boy, come let we parang, bring out the ham parang, to feed our parang man parang, because this parang man I eating more than nothing in
yes.
Parang. Bring out a bottle
Parang.
one that could still be a vessel.
We go parang.
And when the parang play, we could knock it. The budget tight, but Christmas Eve night we stringing up lights, because Christmas coming. Christmas coming, yes. Things could be stiff on the 25th is one set I give, because Christmas coming.
I know about the gift part. It's I no gift this year.
Even if things real bad,
Yes.
I just feel real glad when I have bunch of crepe and eating black cake.
Check abuelas, right?
Just to see these smiles on every single child is only love we sharing on Christmas Day. Never, before the Christmas over, come let we parang, let we make a parang down here. Never, before the Christmas over, come let we parang, let we make a parang down here. Boy, come let we
Parang,
bring out the ham
parang,
to feed us
parang man. Hear my line.
because this parang man parang
I eating more than a singing. Parang,
bring out a bottle
parang,
one that could still be a vessel.
parang.
When the parang play, we could knock it.
A drinking more than a singing. Welcome to episode. This was 75. Hey, 75 is something to celebrate. We could celebrate 75 as our milestone. 3/4 of the way there. We celebrated that. So welcome to episode 75 of the Corey Shepherd podcast. Thank you for everybody who's been tuning in. You can't sing a song in here, you know. From the time you start playing music, certain people just show up. I'll go bring him back, you know. Let him come and play your favorite parang song. Because the man say you want to come and play your favorite parang song, I'll bring him, let him play his song, right? But welcome back to everybody. Thanks for everybody who's been tuning in. And remember, you could get this podcast every Tuesday morning, bright and early. According to when the world is, you know, because if you're getting it UK, it's still early. UK time, and think it early still on that side of the world. Salute to everybody on that side of the world who listening. Salute to my boy Keegs. Keegs coming a nice one this year, you know. I was talking to Keegs earlier, and Keegs say he ain't sure if you bring in no song and all this kind of thing will happen for Christmas. But a good thing you bring some, Keegs. Outside is open. The man say he don't see no need for the curfew. This is a long-term problem. This is no short-term problem. I don't know if within the last 3 months when he extended the first time, he realized that is a long-term problem and we had to learn to live with it. What I do know is that he could have extended on his own the last time, but I believe that he need opposition support to be able to extend it this time. Although I see Dr. Munilal come out and say there's something that they could do in the lower house and the upper house to make it pass. But from what I understand, they need the opposition support. So is it that because they need opposition support, you take in front and say, listen, we don't want for this thing again, it ending in November? Or is it because we have a certain election coming up? I think it's early in December for Tobago, that race heating up. So people making sure. Remember when we had an election in the midst of this COVID, how relaxed the thing get with who crowding and who ain't wearing masks and all that? And it started clamped down. As soon as people start celebrating who win and lost, it started clamped down again. But while we need votes, we need all your outside. But whatever is your reason, it looked like we good to go. It looked like it had no more border closure, so I feel like I in the clear. And that might have effects on the scheduling of this podcast until only now. So I'm not putting this, I'm not setting this in stone yet, right? But put things in place for the next 2 or 3 Tuesdays. Is that just in case kind of thing, yeah? Just in case you was to wake up for the next 3 Tuesdays and not see any podcast coming up. Put something in place for your morning exercise or your morning routine. I give it all plenty warning, right? Like my barber, salute my guy Rosie, right? He sent out a message yesterday saying he on sabbatical leave. So if he out for 2 weeks, I can't trim for the next 2 weeks, and he still on my roof ain't looking so good on this podcast already, you know. So if I feel like going to show up here with my roof looking like it blowing off, shingles gone for the next 2 weeks, that ain't likely to happen. So put things in place, right? But we happy to have a free Christmas from any reaching home 10 o'clock. But now I'm looking for a parang side. I'm playing it out there. Somebody had to find a little parang side for me to play with. I could play little chords, I could sing. Once I drink, I could sing. If I take a taste of something, I could bring some song with all you. I could only sing English, I can't sing Spanish. But if you're singing Spanish, I will back up the closest I hearing to what it is you're saying. So when you say Panamá, I will say, sigh, sigh, sigh. I could fit in with something somebody doing. All you pull me in my parents' side. I mean, I laugh in there, but it's hurtful because 2 members of my parents' side we lost in the season here. For the COVID here during the course of the year. And it's one of them times too, because while we celebrating the amount of freedom we going to get over Christmas, we had to keep in mind that Dr. Hines, as a man, keeps saying he's sounding a little worried. You know, he's saying, boy, listen, the rate of the numbers going up, the amount of people in ICU, the capacity in ICU. We had to remember now that we going into a new phase of the management of COVID where man responsible for themselves. We had to do the right thing on our own without any policing. Nobody to tell us to stay home. Nobody to tell us to mask. Well, I guess you still have to wear a mask and thing, right? But the amount of governance that going behind it, it left us self now. We had to manage ourselves and our children and our family and our elderly and everything. And I mean, talking about the elderly as well as the people who have comorbidities, like the fellas on my parents' side who say they ain't ready for vaccine yet. Them fellas have comorbidities have a lot to do with something called penchant. And overindulgence in things like penchant would lead to comorbidities, you know what I mean? But I see now that they're saying that a 3rd shot is available for people who have comorbidities and people who over the age. I want to say 60. If it's not 65, it's 60. But no surprise there, because my mother was telling me that on her vaccine card, they actually had a window. They had the date or window for a 3rd shot. And they're explaining it not as a booster, which I thought it was. I thought that any shot after the 2 would be a booster. But he's saying it's an additional primary dose. Your guess is as good as mine. I ain't going to read up on that. I've fed up read about COVID and things. So if the man says additional primary dose, that is what it is. And it's supposed to give you even more antibodies against COVID. Once again, it's not going to stop you from getting or spreading COVID. It's just going to help you to cope if you do get COVID. And I would encourage everybody to go and read an article in the papers this week. It was in The Guardian. It's written by Shaliza Hassan Ali, right? I want to start on a sour note, but I read this and it moved me. It says on October 6th, singer Nisha Julia Guy woke up at the St. James Medical Complex with blurry figures of nurses across the ward. Attached to Guy's arms were several tubes. A ventilator covered her nose and mouth. Weak and writhing. How do you say that? Writhing. In pain. She noticed other patients were also hooked up to life support machines. As she tried to remember how she got to this point, Guy heard a nurse shouting, "All your bedtime, wake up." They were referring to Guy. Instantly, healthcare professionals surrounded Guy's bed to check her vitals. Guy, 38, who suffers from comorbidities, had been unresponsive for 3 days at the hospital after testing positive for COVID-19. She was finally awake, bringing an end to the fear and uneasy feeling that had gripped her family and friends for 72 grueling hours. Though she had regained consciousness, Guy was not out of the woods just yet, and as she spent 2 additional weeks at the health institution fighting for her life. Having miraculously survived COVID-19, Guy, the 2014 Digital Rising Star winner, is now counting her blessings. Quote, "I really thought I was going to die, that I would not make it," a tearful Guy said during the recent telephone interview with Guardian Media. "I have to thank nurses, doctors, family members, and Facebook prayer warriors who stood by my side." Guy also shared that in her darkest moments of being placed in a COVID suite filled with patients, many of who did not make it out alive. On September 29, Guy began to feel lightheaded while shopping in a supermarket. While I got home, the symptoms started to kick in. Fever, headaches, diarrhea, vomiting, and severe body pains. Contracting COVID was the last thing on Guy's mind. On October 3rd, she said she started to black out and had to be rushed to St. James Medical Complex when she tested positive for COVID. She said when she got there, she had to spend her first night under a tent because I guess beds unavailable. The ward was full. She said that night there was a mini storm, so the tent began to move and all kind of bacchanal. I am there, I can't breathe, but I'm holding on. The next morning, another test had to be given. While she was awaiting the test results, she became unresponsive and had to be warded immediately. Though she was not placed in the ICU, she was 80% oxygen dependent. After she revived in the days to follow, Guy said what she witnessed on the ward had brought her to tears. I remember a frail 69-year-old woman being rushed into the ward hastily placed on a bed opposite me. The nurses were hooking up to some machine. The woman's eyes were fixed on me. My eyes were also locked on her as the nurses fought to administer oxygen. Guy said one nurse had the woman's daughter on speakerphone, so she overheard the conversation between them. I heard the woman's daughter crying on the phone, telling her mother not to give up. I can still remember her saying, Mommy, you would get better and come home soon, okay? Don't worry. I felt the daughter's pain, knowing she could not have been there to comfort or hold her mother's hands. I told myself this could have been me. At that point, Guy said the woman knew she was dying. In a deep voice, the woman told her daughter, you know your mother done dead and gone, right? Guy said her statement made everyone freeze in fear. Next morning, Guy said the elderly woman was gone from the bed and a male attendant came to collect her belongings. The attendant looked at me and said, this is not your fate. Trust in God and you'll be okay. It then struck me that the woman had died during the night. I was already in tears and my whole body kept shaking. A little long, right? But I hope that you could go ahead and read the rest of the article. There's almost the whole article I read there. Thanks to Shalisa Hassan Ali for bringing this forward, because the reality of dealing with COVID-19 we can't get past that because we get the freedom, right? Yeah, we're going to parent, we're going to eat out people or something, or not. But we had to figure out how to safeguard ourselves. And I'm talking about especially people who know they have comorbidities, who have issues health-wise and so on. Don't go and follow the people who decide they ain't taking the vaccine, who healthy and strong and fit. Don't go and follow them, and decide that you go and battle it out for yourself, because them have a better chance with the thing than you. But I say all this already, right? So I just want you to remember this story when you make any decisions over this Christmas. And I'm mostly talking to myself, because as a man, when I start to drink certain substances, I just want to hug up people and talk to people close in their ears. And music have a way, you want to be very close to people when you're playing. I want to be in front of the guitar man when I'm playing Quattro. So I'll keep in this article and I'm going to read this to myself from time to time so that I can have some kind of behavior this Christmas. Stay away from congregating. Make sure that I stay sanitized. Keep a mask. You can't sing in no mask too much neither, So when we sing it, we just pull long mask and all of we singing and all these things. So, while I'm vaccinated, I want to be careful. And I feel, the third shot is an option for me. I don't know about you, but the third shot is an option. But we there, and we have some kind of freedom, right? That's where we be. All right, let's talk Gary Griffith a little bit. You can't get away from Gary Griffith, right? It always has something to talk about with Gary Griffith. He's clearly back on a media spin, a tour, campaigning, right? Because the thing about it, right, is the incumbent. I say the same thing about the government who in power right now. You see, having to address COVID is a real thing. I don't want to discount that at all. But having the health minister, the attorney general, the prime minister, everybody on TV every day or several times a week for over a year, a part of that is a campaigning job, right? This is FaceTime, men staying relevant. And McDonald Jacob and them doing a fair amount of campaigning as far as I'm concerned while they're inside, because every couple of days they see in a story, the crime was the highest under Gary. I don't know where these stories. So it's sounding like people inside doing their campaigning, and I guess if you want the job, you have to do what it takes to be the best on the short list, yes? So Gary was on Morning Edition with Fazir Mohammed. I like Fazir Mohammed. Salute to Fazir. I don't know Fazir feeling about West Indies performance anyway. We'll get to that, right? But Gary was on Fazir, and I like Fazir Mohammed interview styles, because he don't lay off the hook. He's asking very, very direct questions, and as I say, he's a well-ready, smart, he exposed, he don't back down from nobody. So he gets us to the point where we have answers that give us some kind of clarity, and he do allow people to talk in circles and talk around him and that kind of thing. So salute to Fazir, but Gary is in campaign mode. He was very measured. He answered, well, measured to a point, right? He answered the questions. Fazir had to ask a couple questions in 2-3 different ways to get him to answer, and it seems as though his stance is that Bliss Sipasad is to blame. Because what Bliss Sipasad had the answer for number one, why did she create this list? Merit list, submit it where he was the top person on it, and then withdraw the list. And he make a real good point because Fazir pressed him to say, well, you don't think there was pressure from different parts of the political sphere? I don't want to quote Fazir, probably quoting him wrong, but pressure's coming from different areas. Or, I mean, we could be open. If you're saying is the Prime Minister pressuring him, Fazir didn't say this, right? It's my words now. If you're saying is the Prime Minister or the President, or it coming from somewhere that pressuring the Police Service Commission to get Gary out, then somebody tell them, hey, take back that list and move he from number one or whatever it is. Remember that he wasn't number one when he gets elected the first time, and he was quick to point that out with Fazir, right? That he scored the most in all the tests, but he was number 4, and they had to bypass all the next 3 to get to him anyway because he was the best and he beat them bad, right? But Fazir put that to him. And I think he make a real good point. He was trying to say that it don't matter who put pressure on you, who tell you what nobody can force Bliss Sipasad to change a list or withdraw a list or anything. Is a big woman in an important position for the country. Is an independent position, and you had to make the list and submit it. The president would have sent it to parliament, just like what happened when he gets elected the last time. And of course, there's no guarantee that the number 1 person will be selected, like was the case when he gets elected. He was number 4. So I was real surprised to see such a measured Gary coming down. Salute to Gary. Gary is song and measured. I know what happened if this is campaign mode. Although Gary on the Zoom, people in the Zoom, right? When you watch a little Zoom with professionals these days, you see a little bookshelf behind them. Some people have a little painting. Gary had two sword and army uniform. But then again, that's the man work, right? That's the man work. So that way he like it. You like books, he likes sword, right? Well, I should not say that. I didn't mean that in no way at all, right? That was a mistake. But yeah, he was very, very measured and talking about it. But up to the point where Fazir asked him, listen, there was a new inclusion that said you have to have 15 years of law enforcement. Does that exclude you from the thing? And Gary had to go back into Gary mode and say, I have a little 6-year-old nephew could explain that to you. It's only a fool who would think that it's only police or law enforcement experience. Basically saying that if you're in the military, you also have law enforcement experience. So he's basically saying that, hey, listen, nothing no preclude me or exclude me from being able to get this job. He's still songing like he won the job. I have him now as running for office. He's gonna be in some position somewhere in this country. And as I say, you will see him at a poll near you. If all these polls and swords and things. Let me just read what I come to read it because I'm making a mess of this whole thing. So this is from AZP News. When last I hear about AZP News, when I was watching press conference. Yeah, I think it was from AZP News. Yeah, AZP News. Former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith vows that he'll be back to serve his country. He said, I'm a boomerang and I'll be back in whichever form or fashion. You see that whichever form or fashion? Take note of that, right? That was the message delivered by Gary Griffith speaking on the morning edition with TV6 host Fazir Mohammed on Monday. He made reference to a British poll which showed that 93% of the 2nd Division officers had trust and confidence in him. British poll. I was not a police officer, so you have to earn trust to be a leader and not just wear it on your shoulder, and that's what I did. I worked based on what was in the Constitution, and I had no intention to breach the constitutional rights of any of the citizens of this country, regardless of their color. He was responding directly to a question that Fazir asked about the loss of confidence that the Prime Minister expressed in him. Well, number one, did he know? It took him a long time to say that. And he said he knew that the Prime Minister had expressed it to him before. Maybe that was the whole summon thing. Remember we talked about that when the two tables was real far apart for the meeting? I ain't talking just COVID far apart, I'm talking about don't like one another far apart. Don't bring me nowhere close to this man. Far. Just plenty more than 6 feet distance. It was real distance. They couldn't even get one. They struggled to get a wide lens to get one photo with both of them, and the way them tables was far apart. But he was asking him if his seemingly soft stance of people of a certain ilk of society was different to his harsh stance of people of a certain ilk of society. Or to say different, You're roughing up people and beat them and thing, and you had them lying down on the ground and saying, sorry, Gary. But people up in the towers, they're bathing in the pool and they're sending pictures and thing, and they're doing what they want. And he ain't saying nothing about that. But he said that the constitutional, he's not going against the Constitution, and the Public Health Act was clear. And he had said that back then too. But Gary, let me just read on, right? He admitted that no police service was perfect, and he was concerned about a couple hundred out of 7,000 good hard-working police officers. This played a big part towards the last 18 months when I was in office. There were over 200 less murders than the same period last year. Meanwhile, in the last 10 weeks, when I was not there, there were more than 50 murders in the same 10 weeks than the same 10 weeks from last year and in 7 months earlier. So in other words, everything gone bad since he gone, right? I expected that. He made reference to a poll which stated that 89% of the respondents desired his return to the office, while 11% had concerns about the individual like himself. My records speak for itself. The assessments, every single violent crime was reduced by 25 to 38%, which was the highest reduction in crime. When I joined the service, police confidence was now over 40%. If persons have an issue with Gary Griffith's personality, it's all a part of the package. I do what's right for this country. He said if you don't want Gary Griffith, then you deal with it in Parliament where it matters. Someone should not try to hide or scrap the merit list, but deal with it how our constitution was set to appoint a police commissioner. Now, I cannot disagree with that in any way. I agree with that 100%. If it is we had to get Gary Griffith, all them things had to be done the right way. You see that whole idea of a merit list come and then it went back. He blaming Bliss Prasad alone, but I have an issue with it from the standpoint of Bliss Prasad, the president, the prime minister. It does smell right. Something not right with the whole thing. If you always go and reject Gary Griffith, I think you have enough support. He's a polarizing figure. He's one of them people where you should do, right, is anything you see about Gary Griffith. I believe he's supposed to be also on WESN on Tuesday morning. He making the media wrongs, right? He's staying campaigning. But look at the comments under any one of his articles, videos, anything he posts and so on. And you will notice that is almost split down the middle. There are people who saying Gary for president, Gary for prime minister. We want Gary back. I had to bring back Gary. A big sentiment that people have, laymen of course like myself, the big sentiment is Gary like he has some kind of information on people in the government or big society, people big wigs now, so they had to get rid of him and that type of thing. And you also have another 50% of the comments that say Gary corrupt and he hire all the friends and you're paying your friends big money and you're bypassing this and you're trying to make your son go and play football, and you have enough dissenters. And so if it goes to Parliament, no matter if you appoint him or if you reject him, the outcry going to be the same. The outcry going to be 50-50. One bag of people celebrating. You remember Rhoda Barrett had a whole celebration live when he was removed or suspended or whatsoever it was. You're going to have a bunch of people who like that. And then you're going to have a bunch of people as well who say, oh, they move him because all they corrupt and this and that and the other. And boy, these days I'm starting to believe everybody right, yes, and everybody wrong at the same damn time. So I don't know which side of this fence I sit on with Gary Griffith yet, because I believe you're right. Let the thing go through the normal process and go to Parliament. That didn't smell right, and then they've suspended people who you can't suspend and thing getting amended. I just feel uncomfortable with those types of things, and it don't look right. But I'm also very uncomfortable on the flip side of the coin with I think Gary Griffith harasses private citizens. And that is very, very worrying. I myself, if you remember, if you're a long time listener to this podcast, you might remember how hesitant I was to talk about those things, because I don't want to deal with them kind of thing, you know? I don't want any kind of problems with somebody sending people to investigate me. Listen, I obey most laws. I try to obey most of the laws in the land, right? But like anybody else, if you send me to investigate me, you go find thing. If we being real. And I never really like that. I like to come here and talk about issues and thing. I kind of like the balance behind it, you know what I mean? But I was always worried about it, especially I worried about it from the standpoint of him going on Facebook and call me out. That's why I'd be hesitant with people like him, people like Philip Alexander. They men like to go and make live and call out your name hard and all kind of thing and go and find up thing about you, and next thing they calling your family name and thing. I don't like that. But it's even worse when you have somebody who have the kind of power that a police commissioner has. And I've always said that if you're the police commissioner, if you have that type of power, you have to be careful what you say. You can't respond to people on Facebook. Why? And you hear it in the AZP article, right? He almost saying like, well, this is part of the package. Right? That's part of the personality. Well, dude, you have to cool down your personality. That's not how it works. You could do a little emotional intelligence course. You know, I strain a little bit, right? But I was listening to a podcast with Mike Tyson and Bill Burr. If you know Bill Burr always talks about having... You're a comedian, right? One of the best comedians there. And he always talks about having temper issues. And imagine Mike Tyson was telling him, boy, you need to go and get emotional intelligence training. Mike Tyson is a whole different person now. You need to listen to Hot Boxing podcast with Mike Tyson. Is a whole different individual. But anyway, Gary Griffith had to go and get some AI training or something like that, or whatever training. I don't know what else he need, because you can't be so moved by things that people saying on Facebook about you that you had to go and respond to every comment. Anybody saying anything bad about you while you and Paul wasn't even vying for anything at the time. You now get police commissioner work, you're safe. Everybody talking about Gary, there's Gary for president and thing. But the couple bad comments you get, you had to respond to all of them and telling people, even when the interview with Fazir asked him, listen, the law enforcement thing, he had to say, well, you have to be dotish to think. Why you had to talk to people like that? The position you in don't have all the power behind it already. You have to be careful who you're responding to on social media. I would not respond to any of them. You know, it's like somebody who, in work, I tell people this all the time, your position as a manager, as supervisor, whatever, the position don't have the authority in it already, you know. You, as somebody manager, you could influence whether that person have their job or not tomorrow. You don't have to put no source on that. You know, they used to say the truth is done no offense already. You don't have to source it up or buff up people and quarrel or cuss up people and things. I hate to see them kind of things in managerial positions. You know, you could talk to people respectfully still. And it's the same parallel with the commissioner of police. You have so much power behind you that you could just let something slide, because when you do respond to comments, it comes with more weight than the words that you're typing out. You're the commissioner of police. That's a very scary thing. If you respond to me, let's say I say something, well, Gary Griffith is the worst commissioner we ever had, when we should get rid of him. And he respond under that and say, but you're the worst podcast let's have and we should get rid of you. Well, he's smarter than that. He ain't gonna put that. But if he put something, let's say something happened to me the next time, or something happened to me next day, or me and a policeman fall out, how do you then pass the smell test when I start to double wait? Like, Gary, send police for me out. How is I again in police problems all of a sudden when I make one bad comment about the police commissioner and that police commissioner respond? So even if he is to be reinstated, or I mean, that's something he had to work on. I find it hard to see how he doesn't see that. You understand what I mean? I think as a learned, accomplished man, big man with children and thing, it would be so easy for you to see that as an issue. But we wait and see. He in the media wrong, so he will probably be mentioned again next week. By the time I hear the WSN one, probably next week, well, next week-ish, we go talk about him again. But as I mentioned Rhoda Barrett as well, his sworn enemy, his arch rival. I saw something happen with her. Now, Rhoda Barrett, again, is somebody who I like a lot. She is extremely knowledgeable about things that I like Calypso and stuff. I hope to have her on this podcast one day to talk some Calypso, because the things that she knows about how Calypsos are structured and the type of Calypsos is things that I never hear anybody talk about before. And I know that she lectures in UE. I'm not sure if what she lectures has to do with culture or journalism, but whichever one, she bright like hell, plenty brighter than me, and she know her stuff. But I saw something from her this week that I didn't like, and I want to highlight it, because it's something that I feel we had to improve on collectively as a people, right? I try my best not to talk about this issue, and this episode is one of them where it's a plenty thing I try to avoid talking about, and I end up I had to come and face it. So I want to say rest in peace to Kezia Janika Guerra, and condolences to her family. I read them from The Guardian now. All of us saw this story, right? It's from Derek Achong. Police officers investigating the murder of 28-year-old Santa Cruz resident Kezia Janika Guerra are considering the possibility that the man suspected of committing the crime took his own life hours after she went missing last Saturday. Police said the homicide detectives are working with the theory, which arose following extensive investigations over the past few days, which culminated in Guerra's decomposing body being found in a shallow grave in Maracas, St. Joseph yesterday morning. So unfortunately, we saw it going around where people were praying for a safe return. that wasn't the case. And they're saying, from all these stories put together, right, it sounds as if she had somebody who she was in a relationship with before, and that is the person who was suspected because that person committed suicide. You remember this story about Mia in Miami? Although she wasn't in a relationship, respectfully, she was in a relationship with the person who was the main suspect, but the same thing happened where the main suspect had already committed suicide. But in this case, in Trinidad here now, some other people, they're saying two Venezuelan nationals, will also be in question now because they seem to have been involved in the disposal of the body. But anyway, it's a sad story, and nobody want to have to go through anything like this. I can't wait for the day when we never have to read things like this about anybody in our country or any woman in our country. It's too many of these types of things, you know what I mean? We always seeing it. It's sad. It's something that we had to get past as a country, but I can't wait for us to not have these things to talk about. But coming off that, and with posting this article, the headline on the news source, or the caption on the news source was, "This story is too sad. No vigils from the Avengers?" as a question. Now, I always say here, right, the only good thing to say when somebody passes away is rest in peace. I spoke about this with the Abu Bakr thing as well. I just personally find so, because I think it's useless after somebody passes away to debate anybody about anything or say anything, because anything could come across as insensitive because it's such a sensitive topic. And the only reason I come to that conclusion is because of my own past. I remember a fella I know in school. I remember his father passed away, and I never liked the fella, and the fella don't like me. We're enemies as far as I'm concerned in school. If it comes down to fight, we fight it. And I remember a friend of mine coming and telling me, "Boy, so and so father passed away." And my first response was, "I don't care about him. If father could dead, that nothing to do with me." And when I saw his response, because this is my friend now telling me about this, right? But when I see how disappointed he was in what I said, it made me take a step back. And then I studied that for a long time. And I didn't like the way I felt after having said that. You know what I mean? I never say it to the fellow face. I mean, me and the fellow, after years, I end up bouncing him up in work circles and that kind of thing. And we cool, you know what I mean? He's a good youth. And I wish I had never felt that way. I'm not just not say it, but I wish I didn't feel that way at the time. I just didn't like the guy. And I felt like even if put it this way, even if I felt that way, you just don't say it. You should just say, "Listen, no, sorry to hear that." It don't take much out of you to just say, "Boy, condolences, I'm sorry to hear that." Even if it's not in the person present, which I try my best to do. If somebody's not there, I try my best to be loyal to the absent. You know what I mean? So when you say things like this, right, the story is so sad. No vigils from the Avengers. Now, I'm a Rhoda Barrett fan. I'm a news source fan. I'm a follower. So immediately when I saw it, I knew that when she said Avengers, she was talking about Ian Allen, Philip Alexander, and Inshan Ishmael. Immediately. And the vigil she's comparing it to, of course, is the vigil that was done for Andrea Barrett. Rest in peace to her and condolences to her family, of course. Because at that point in time, her father, along with those three men who she had called Avengers for a long time, and they joined together like Thanos. I probably had her wrong because I never watched Avengers, but that is the kind of thing she used to say back then, where they pick and choose their issues, and while trying to put these things delicately, right? So let me use myself as an example. If I was to lose somebody in my family, I might be very, very happy for a lot of support from the public and from high-profile individuals who could help me to make the change that I need to see so that don't happen to nobody else's child, right? If that's a good way to put it. But I personally would be very disappointed if then I was to find out or realize during the process that I being used for political gain, where somebody's saying that me losing my child is a failure of the government, and the solution to protecting my child is to vote otherwise. I would feel since I'm talking about it, I'm a pause reason. I would feel very, very used. I think to fight, to be honest. I get upset just saying it, just putting myself in that place. And I'm not saying in any way that is what Andrea Barrett's father would be feeling. I just telling you how I would feel if I get any inkling that you're trying to politicize what happened with my child. And I'm saying that even if I'm in support of the political ideals of the people who come to give me that support. So let me say as a supporter of the ILP, and Jack Warner come to help me, support me, this, that. But if I realize that he using this out of not the genuine kindness of his heart as a father or as a leader in the country, we're using it to say, PNM is a waste of time. If you vote for me, these things ain't going to happen, and me and Jack go fight. You understand what I'm saying? So, because I follow news source and I try to take in her lives and I try to learn a lot from her in terms of the way she covers stories and the information she's bringing to the table, I immediately knew who the Avengers were. I do agree with the post because, again, when you post something like this, it was so fresh that morning when you wake up and you see the article that the girl did. We hoping silently and publicly that we could find this person back. Now, she did when the news broke and the initial story came about finding the grave, finding the shallow grave. She did come out and say tragic, which is, I think it summed up exactly how everybody felt at the time. And I kind of feel like you could leave it at them things, tragic, rest in peace, so sad, whatever it might be. But when you go on to say no vigils from the Avengers, it sounds just like how I would have feel about Jack Warner coming. I feel like, listen, all is still talking political thing. Who fighting who and all, they don't like the Avengers and the Avengers don't like Superman and them. I know a song and I know not know these Avengers, right? I'm trying to draw a parallel. But I didn't like the post. Now, what I will say is that under that post had 329 comments, 66 shares, 344 reactions. And of course, a lot of people shared the same sentiment I had, where, hey, this is not the time for that. But it went on a different road to her. Because there's Trinidad and it had to have action. It had to have action. So imagine that people are in the comments saying, hey, what kind of racist thing is this? Now, I trying to figure out what would the racist part come in. I had to assume that people might have thought that she's saying that because past situations like these where people of a certain race had vigils, and now these girls have a different race, so it have no vigil. I'm not sure that is what she was trying to say at all, but people went down a race road one time, and some of them rightly say, well, if you find should have vigil, you should organize your own vigil, but I don't think she was talking about vigils in general. I think she was talking about the Avengers. So all these comments who under here, who attacking Rhoda Barrett now and saying this and that, and the person dying, you have no sympathy, and listen, you all doing the same thing you're accusing her of doing. You don't have to go down that road to make it a political thing and this, and why you don't organize your own vigil. And listen, it was just sad to see that was just a whole distraction from the whole situation. I mean, even if you want to say that, like I say that the timing of that post was poor, I will also go on to say that I didn't really hear a whole lot from Ian Allen, Philip Alexander, and Inchan Ishmael on this matter in particular. And the thing about it is, you can't expect people to pick up every issue. People have to pick up the issue that reached them. So while some of the commenters are going on to say why you don't organize your own vigil, that's a poorly timed statement, post, or question, but it's valid in its own way. We need to get past this thing where if you do protest for every single issue it have, then you're biased. All of us biased. Everybody biased to different things. I put in it to you that if you see somebody in the papers tomorrow that something tragic happened to and that person look exactly like you, like your twin brother or your twin sister, you're going to feel different or more for that person than you feel if you see somebody who's a complete stranger. You know why I always talk about, like when I was small growing up, I used to watch war in the Middle East and war in the Gaza Strip. Them things used to look like it's not real. I know it's insensitive to say, but it's not real people to me. I was so disconnected from it that I just couldn't relate. It was too far, and the next side of the world is a different language. When you see things come up and you see Beirut and man shooting bullets and who pelting back stone behind them, it just was too hard for me to connect with. But when I saw children starving in Africa, that meant something to me, and the reason that it meant something to me is because while they far too, they look a little bit more like me. It looked like, but this could have been me. This could have been my partner. This looking just like so and so. That's just a natural thing for us to have. And we had to stop hiding behind these things and making every single issue that people come up with a racist issue or political issue. And that's all I have to say about that issue. Again, when it comes down to people and these tragic situations, the tragic post, I think we had to get to that point where we could just say rest in peace, condolences, this is tragic. And sometimes give it time. For where even when we're making a valid point, sometimes it might be too soon. Alright, time for a feel-good story, right? Like we got a feel-good story coming out of that because you see many heaviness. Reading from The Guardian. Who write this article now? It looked like the whole Guardian writes. Can't see no name. Aidan Eugene, a young gas station attendant who captured the country's heart with his inspirational story of how he was putting himself through tertiary education by working part-time, has received some additional support towards his degree goal from his employer, NP. Salute to NP, man. Aidan had received a tablet and a backpack to hold his textbooks from the company at the end of last month. NP believes the pursuit of education at all levels is paramount to the development of our youth as part of its corporate social responsibility initiatives. The company commits to providing tangible support to the youth in the community and within its service station network, the company said in an official statement. NP said it was happy to support the young man after hearing of his educational efforts. They quoted as saying, as the COVID-19 pandemic gave rise to challenges to many, NP is proud to recognize Aidan Eugene, a forecourt attendant at the Laventille service station. That should not be that hard to read, no, to be honest. Aidan, who hails from 2nd Caledonia Mova, is the holder of 7 CXU level subjects and is working part-time pursuing a degree in computer engineering. So salute to Aidan. Aidan, well done. NP, well done. I got a good story all around. I have a question for NP though, to be honest. And I'm glad to do this for Aidan. I hope they continue to recognize more and more people like this so that we could get more opportunity and chances for people to elevate themselves and better themselves, you know. But I have a question to ask because the other day I saw a robbery. The headline was robbery at NP service station. And a video was going around. And it looked like some people tried to run in a station, I believe it's in Mount Hope, if I'm not mistaken. And when they tried to run in the police station, a man, a gas station attendant, who they would call a forecourt attendant, just like Aidan, take out the hose. I don't know if it's super unleaded or what. A diesel. That man just started spray down people. Robbers had to run. No, I get frightened because you know how tragic news is be here sometimes. So when I see spraying them, I say, oh God, the next thing going to happen here is this whole place going to blow up. But salute to him. He ended up chasing away the bandits because that man gets smoked. I don't know if diesel is burn or it is scratch or it get in the eye or wherever it is because when they say bandit man have gun. But he used his own spray gun and bait people down with gasolina and men had a kick out and that was the end of the robbery. So I find like he should get some kind of scholarship. They need NP. You need to do something for this guy. This guy saved a service station. He saved you from a robbery. You know what I mean? He reduced the crime statistics under McDonald Jacob. Somebody needs to step up and get... Because that's real quick thinking. Because I don't know if I spraying down nobody. If I work in somewhere and only come to rob the place, we getting robbed. I not... He think real fast, but I can't think so quick. And I ain't putting myself through that. So salute to him. And salute to Aidan. I hope that NP come true. I don't know if you want a scholarship, you want a digit, whatever it is you could do for him, you had to do for him. In other good news, is there any other thing locally you have to talk about, boy? Because the whole foreign episode and nothing happened locally as far as I concerned. This week was there is a struggle for content. I'm being open. Paul captures world champs bronze after semi-final defeat. So salute to our guy Nigel Paul. This is a reading from Jonathan Ram Nanan Singh in the Newsday. Nigel Paul captured Trinidad and Tobago's first ever International Boxing Association World Championships medal when he claimed bronze in the super heavyweight plus 92 kilograms semi-finals in Serbia on Thursday. Remember we were talking about that last week? So he went through and he got bronze. That's the first time we ever got a medal. So salute to our boxer Nigel Paul. You did well. You went there and you fight. And this is my thing with sports, you know. I could back any side when they're going out there and they're fighting. I had this issue with Soca Warriors the other day where we're not looking like if we fighting. I mean, I know they seem to have some issues with Fenwick and all that, but we have a coach who fighting. Now remember, Angus even want to fight people in the dressing room and thing. I hope we maintain that fighting spirit going forward. And unfortunately, I watched a team this week that didn't fight at all. I say they need to change Stockholm Syndrome to West Indian Syndrome. because as West Indian cricket fans, you know how long I stay away from cricket, you know how long I stop watching West Indies cricket, but slowly but surely, they sucked me back into CPL and I started to watch that. And little by little, I started to watch West Indies play cricket again. And boy, it's something else to see. These men looking like if it's just lackluster. I think they look so cavalier that it's a hard team to support, but the men don't look like if they're trying to fight back to win. It look like a bunch of individuals, man. Like Hetmeyer played a good little innings in the end. He animated like hell. When he missed, I don't know. Maybe I'm being unfair to Hetmeyer. It just bothered me when every shot he missed and every time he out, he had to look up in the air and think, he batted on the ground. And like, dude, it's just too much for me, especially when your team underperforming. And I don't know if this is underperforming. I think the only game we win is against Bangladesh, who come last in the group anyway. We lost to Sri Lanka, who was done out when they play with them, had no chance of qualifying. All right, it's okay. Rebuilding here, it looked like. Salute to Dwayne Bravo, who came out and said this is his last game for West Indies, officially retired. And I want to say something about West Indies cricket, right? Something that I genuinely don't like about the way we treat our heroes. As much as I would come here and say Chris Gayle shouldn't be on that team and all that, historically, we play a little too much games with our heroes. All the biggest players we ever had in West Indies went through a stint where they couldn't get selected because of some disciplinary issue. There's always something. I remember it with Lara, it happened with Gayle and Bravo, and then there's always some blacklisting issue. And then the other thing that we do is we make their retirement or their exit from the game as unceremonious as we possibly could, even though they have contributed so much to the game. So let me talk about Chris Gayle, right? Chris Gayle is undoubtedly the most dominant player in the history of T20 cricket. I could say that. That would be fair to say. Or I should just limit it to batsmen. Okay, let me just say batsmen, right? One of the most dominant. The man with the highest score. I think he had the fastest century, the most sixes in an innings. He played in Australia, Big Bash, and IPL and CPL. He played everywhere they had to play. One of the top players. You had to select him number one in several teams on several leagues over the years. This is a giant in our culture. While I agree that it might not be the best thing to select him for this tour, and not so much select him, but be still dependent on him in this tour, we should never be in a position where a man like Chris Gayle had to come and ask, please, to get a home game in Jamaica where he could get a send-off. The planning of these things is to be done well in advance, right? So when you say you have a home game in Jamaica, and you done planning that since last year, that's something where they could come together and say, listen, Gayle, we know you're on the thing. We're starting to reach a point where we have doubts about selecting you. And we have youths we want to bring into the squad. So here what we want to do, right? We're looking at next year in Jamaica, and we want to select you until that point. You might be on the bench, you might be this. You could talk to him and tell him, listen, this is what we want to do. If you play for your spot and you average up and everything, you're getting selected because he's one of the most dangerous men in the crease anyway. And when you get on, few people could do what you do. But we're looking at this date. And make a big deal out of it. Make this into a huge celebration where we could honor our legends and our stars the way they deserve to be honored. Them men do so much for the game. The other one, Bravo. You want to call him one of the greatest players in the history of T20 cricket or any format of cricket, and what he do for West Indies or do for Trinidad, that cannot be discounted in any way. You know, I was watching this week was Dwight York birthday. Salute to the Man U legend and Trinidad and Tobago, a Tobago legend Dwight York, right? I don't know how you're feeling about Man U right now. But this was his birthday, 50th birthday. Imagine that Yorkie's 50. Yorkie looking better than me. Looking younger and fitter and everything. This man looking good. And I saw him, Latapi and Lara in Dubai celebrating their birthday. Along with Hoppy. I don't know. That was kind of, I know that region. And then Daniel Lovelace from What You Know was there. And these fellas having a time. And it's so nice to see them at this age being able to relax and just enjoy life. Them men looking good. The skin glowing. You know what I mean? They're looking happy. And the contribution that they make for our country, I just be happy to see them looking so happy and relaxed at 50. Just enjoying their life, spending time together as brothers. You know, I was in the stadium and Latapi scored. Latapi in his, on his last debut for Trinidad against, I think it would be Guatemala, if I'm not mistaken. I'll probably have that wrong. Or no, it can't be El Salvador. Panama, maybe? Let's be it, a man, a drop shoulder and thing and slap home one on the Ben Hacker. Remember that first game back? Listen, the joy that men bring to me, and how much of them type of memories we have with Dwighty or bringing in corner and Dennis Lawrence scoring, or Lara, countless of them memories. 375 by 400. What they do for the country or for the region can't be discounted. So we can have a home game where Lara retiring and Marlon, he simply get run out. I don't want to say Marlon Samuels running him out, right? I know Marlon Samuels has some issues with people with the same bravo who we talking about, but he get run out and it ends on a whimper. The Giants, the Courtney Walsh, the Kirtley Ambrose, Richie Richardson, Vivian Rich, you go through the list. We supposed to have these fellas on them as giants when they retire from the game. You know how in the NBA, have a good example of it where as you go to all the different arenas, they announce that this is your last game in the arena and they give you a clap off and they make something like that where we if you tour in the Caribbean, let him go Guyana, let him go Jamaica, let him see everywhere, do everything that he had to do and get us send off, because we as fans would like to see them as well and give them the send off that they deserve. I don't think Chris Gayle want nothing out of the game again. I don't think he want money or he looking for a digit. That is why he's still trying to fit into the team. But I mean, having said all that, I hope they give him his last game in Jamaica so we could see that and document that. But all in all, it was a real poor performance by him and everybody else on that team. That team never looked the part. My father have a philosophy. He said the West Indies decide that they define what T20 cricket is. I tell you what my philosophy is, right? And they define it as whooping, well, as big hitting. So T20 is not for strategy and a bunch of little singles. And he says it's just one of them things where we never really get on with the thing. And my philosophy to him is, listen, if you are the dominant force in the game, right, which we were up to this point, and it means that every other team, from the smallest one to the one closest to you in talent and name and all that, they'll be looking at what you're doing and trying to see how they could pick you apart. It's clear that the other teams have figured out a way to pick us apart. And I think Ian Bishop said that well, and Darren Sammy said it well as well. He was saying that the teams advance, and we still trying to play the same way. So they adjust how they bowl and they adjust how they make their runs to suit. And then we not only couldn't get big scores, but the bowling looked tame, boy. West Indies, if this is where we come to in terms of our bowling attack, the bowling was more like defense than attack. And then I understood from Sammy as well that the bowlers were really defensive bowlers. It's not penetrating bowlers that Pollard had to select from. So when we, in a pinch, there was very few people he could call on to as genuine wicket takers. And I tell myself, well, Sunil Narayan will be one of them people. But I don't know if he ain't go because of the arm action and all them things. But anyway, salute to West Indies. We get some licks, but they get licks too. So we're not alone. And you know what I mean? We completely out the tournament. Man, you get some licks too. They now look like they was coming back. And this would be the perfect weekend for Chelsea to win a little game. When Man U get licks, Man City get licks. No, Man City beat Man U. And Liverpool get licks from West Ham. This would be a nice game. He was leading a game 1-0 whole time. He come and get a little soft goal. This would be a nice time to pull distance between we and them boys. But that's what it is. How is fantasy team going? How is all the fantasy team going up there? Anyway, one more sport. What is this? Sports? I don't even know if to call this sports. That's it for local thing, right? There's nothing else happening locally. I'm done with everything local, right? Let me just make sure, because every week now, when I finish record and I publish the episode, I find in some kind of note about something I was supposed to talk about and I forget. I'm not a young man. That's only bear with me. Let me just go through this list here. Oh no, this story, but you see that good thing I checked the list? This story bothered me. If you know South, right? Where's called there, boy? When you're heading towards the wharf, when you're leaving like by cross inside and you're heading towards the wharf, you're driving on that road on the outside near the coastline. There's some much needed road work going on there, right? Now, this kind of work important to me, right? And if you know that corner, I don't know how to get this description of the corner, but it's right down by the cemetery when you're heading towards the wharf, right? Rudal Cemetery is the name of the cemetery. It's important to widen that road and everything, right? Especially where they have big works on the wharf, the waterfront, I should call it, in San Fernando, and what had happened down there. And that project on stream for some years now. Well, so widening that road and making it into more of a boulevard than a little side road make a lot of sense, right? So I don't have an issue with the project. But listen to the level of slackness we have in this country. The road work going on, which includes some, what is called excavating, like they dig up the road and thing. Of course, they had to clear the side. And that road is not a whole lot of space because it's cemetery running up on the hillside there. Just last week, I was talking about my affinity for cemeteries, right? So, this is Richmond. And apparently, in clearing out all the dirt or clearing out the land to get the road to pass, these people dump all the overburden, all the old dirt, I don't know what it's called that, in the cemetery. And I'm talking about, picture something 20 feet high in terms of mounds of dirt, 10, 20 feet high. And apparently they cover over a whole row of graves inside the cemetery. Now that cemetery is a iconic part of San Fernando, is known. If you know South, you know where I'm talking about. It's just past the buildings and thing after you take the big bed. Listen. I don't know street names and things. It's the worst man to get this report. But it's rural cemetery. But it's rural. I find this is rural slackness on our part as a country and as a people. We had to find a better way to operate as people. This can't be it. And I want to play for you some of the feedback from the people who go on in the cemetery now and trying to find their loved ones. Keep in mind that All Saints and All Souls was last week, where people will go and clean up their gravesite, paint, light the little candle and stuff. Right here it is.
This is a very painful thing to deal with. Coming to look for your loved one and not being able to find them. Don't know where to look for them. Don't know what, it's very, very painful. This is not easy to deal with. I come sometimes to talk to my mother or my father and I can't find them. I can't find them. I don't know where to look for them, and I have to assume now that this is where they are.
My mother's grave down there is covered with this mountain of dirt. This area here is a row of graves where my mother is. It's graves all down there, and the graves are covered. So now you'll see that there's a drain, water, all that is grave. That's grave. I want the city hall, who is in charge of this, to exhume my mother's casket and put it in a safe place on the hill. Okay? Because here is marked for a drain. How could you have a drain on top of my mother's grave?
Listen, who is planning all these things? In a funny way, it related to what Gary Griffith was saying about Bliss Prasad, and is why I agree with it. In that, you have people who doing planning, you have committees, you have people who put in policies in place. So this would have been a part of assuming the wharf development process and all that, right? But you can't tell me it have one person on that job site, where there's a foreman or somebody. We like to blame the government and who and thing and the corporation and all those things. We like to blame the governance structure, right? And I'm not saying that they above blame. They had to take blame for this too. But when we on a job site, it's no supervisor, no foreman, a forklift man, or not forklift, what is called them thing? The one that's dig. Abaco? Somebody in saying, guys, we cannot put this here. That is people's grave. We cannot move this. And stop the whole project and send it back up the chain for somebody to make a decision at the mayor's office or in the city council or whatsoever it might be. I don't know, boy. I just wanted to highlight that because if you're from South, you know the grave I'm talking about, the cemetery I'm talking about. And if you ever take the water taxis pull up just beyond them cemeteries. If you're heading into the Gulf View side or Gulf City side, you're passing that cemetery on your right hand side, going up the hill all the time. And why people have to be going through this? So people come to see about the grave and thing, All Saints and All Souls, and this way you had to deal with it. It's sad. I mean, in other sad news, I tried my best to avoid. I was being responsible and mature for a long time. I want to I gave myself a damn clap. I clapped at myself because I was being very responsible and mature. Because I was not saying anything about Jada Pinkett and Will Smith. I watch it. I hear all kind of thing. She's saying sex life and married and all. I say I'm leaving this alone. I'm not going to say anything about it. And I'm still not saying nothing about it. I'm leaving this alone. But I know how hard it is to find content every week, right? I want to as much as people bad talking Jada Pinkett Smith, I want to defend her a little bit here because this is one of them weeks where it's a struggle to figure out what to come here and talk about, right? And listen, they're taking everything out of me, not just to come and talk about Stacey's sex life and doing thing. You understand? Because there's nothing else to talk about. So I understand what Jada Pinkett going through, because if you had to do this red table talk and you start to remember things about you and Will and thing, you go talk about that. And as much as they were saying, you know, he a West Indies syndrome too. Because one, she celebrate Tupac birthday in a big way. I see somebody say for Halloween, she tell Will he had to dress up like Tupac. She's let be known. Well, the August Alsina and the entanglement thing was done embarrassing enough. But I think what happened a couple of weeks ago that bubbled back up is she say, listen, when you're now getting to know somebody or you're saying you can't assume when it comes to people and their sex life, you assume because all they love one another, you're going to know what each other like, and that is not always the case. It's song like if she's saying Will was fumbling his way out in the dark and Tupac knew what he wanted, you know what I mean? I don't like how she played that way, but it's content. You have to say things. Sometimes you're doing a podcast, you're watching the numbers every week, it's looking good. All of a sudden the numbers take a dip. Somebody in your personal life had to take a hit there, so Will Smith had to eat that. And I had to defend her again because I said, but why she don't say nothing about the man? She making the man look bad in these streets. There's Will Smith. There's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You can't do him that. How much action movie he acting? There's Hitchcock. How you gonna do the man that? You can't we watching we heroes like this, you know what I mean? But I realize Will have a book. Will Smith is launching his new book. So he has West Indies syndrome because he leaning into himself just as much as Jada Pinkett leaning into him. As much as she using his, I really shouldn't say shortcomings. There's not shortcomings, right? But they're entanglements and all these things. She using everything, all the info she have about him, all the experiences for content. He doing the same thing because my boy going on Oprah. I mean, sad, he come out and say he wanted to commit suicide. He said he was falling in love with the actress and he set a time. Now he say he going to kill his father. So the name of the book is Will 2021. Whenever this book come out, I want it. I get this book for sure. Because I want to know more. If this is what Oleg giving away in the book, what the rest of the book looking like? And I want to know what happened with August too. I have some theories about she and August. You know. But it is a little more clear now that it seemed like if they come to some kind of arrangement where you could have your birds and I could have my birds and never betwixt the two shall meet. How is this thing again? You know what I mean? Never between the two shall meet. And this is their marriage arrangement. And I remember him talking about this, right? There was a time that he said that Jada had get disrespectful or loud with him or something, and he say he plop out with a newspaper on her head. You remember him saying that? And he say, I'm not responsible for your happiness. But I didn't realize he mean that I'm not responsible for your happiness, so you had to go and get your own birds, I get my birds, and and you know, you would think to yourself that if I make a deal, right? If I make an arrangement and I say, listen, you go ahead and have your birds, I having my birds. We make some little ground rules. Don't bring your birds around my children. Don't bring your birds home by me. Don't make your birds sweaty up my bed. Don't take no pictures with your birds and put them on you remember Donald Sterling? Don't put them on those Instagrams. You know what I mean? Don't do that. And keep your thing discreet. And I go keep. If you have an arrangement like that, when it's children young, my son is 9. Like when he reached 18, 19, 20, when you're big, like his children, Willow and Jaden is the next one there. Them children big now. So it's like, if we have an arrangement like that, I wonder how come they're still staying in the marriage, right? Only because with my limited knowledge, I would think that if you're making an arrangement like that, it's for the children's sake. But maybe they evolved. Remember Marshall Montano said that in the interview with Voice on Them. He evolved to a higher level. He vibrating on a high frequency. Me ain't vibrating there yet. If that's how we live it, then let me go and get my own place when them children get big. Because the children have to be on Red Table Talk too. You know, them know the whole scene and them know August and they know Will Smith birds. Everybody know everybody birds. So I mean, salute to both of them. No harm, no foul. The book is Will in 2021. I'm going to read that book and come and talk about it. And by the way, as we talking about books, right? Because one of the first things I ever say in this podcast was I was going to do book recommendations and I never do the one. So let me do this one now. At some point while I used to read a lot of books, still I use off on the books a little bit because I have something to do every week to publish every Tuesday morning that I'm a busy now boy. But I started reading more and more autobiographies. That's what it's called, them biographies or autobiographies. And I just want to make a recommendation, right? You see Kevin Hart book? I want to tell you that Kevin Hart book might be one of the best books I ever read. Now, remember who you're talking to, right? So I use the term read very loosely. By read, I mean audible, and I listen while I drive, just like our podcast, right? But the name of the book is I Can't Make This Up. Listen. You might say what you want about Kevin Hart, right? Whether you feel he's funny, whether you feel his stand-up. I don't find his stand-up that funny of late. The first three was his best ones. Maybe even the fourth one was good. I think his Laugh at My Pain, Grown Little Man. What now? I can't remember the name of them, but they're good. And he also has a 5-part series on Netflix. Don't F this up, I think is the name of it. That good too. Stacey tell you about that. I watch that very, very often. But I Can't Make This Up is one of the best books you could get. Now, I don't know what's the experience like reading the book like a paper book, right? But if you're into audiobooks, listen to that book because it is the single funniest book I have ever heard or read or whatever you want to call it. Tiffany Haddish one was good too, but Kevin Hart thing had me crying, laughing. I remember being in the gym and people like, what does this man laugh? He going mad out. And it's like not just laughing, emotional, because there was a part of the book where his mother died and I kind of tearing up. I had to catch myself real quick and remember in public. So my first book recommendation, I Can't Make This Up. Now, let me talk about Netflix now, as we don't bring up Netflix. Netflix owing my money. I went back, what much is pay for Netflix now? About $13, $14? I want $13, $14. I don't like the way Netflix going. I'm not enjoying Netflix at all. I run and go on and watch Colin Kaepernick because last week they say Colin Kaepernick show, and you remember all the issues with Kaepernick and thing, and the Black Lives Matter and the kneeling and all that. I was all in support of that. I was happy for a brand that I like a lot, Nike. I think I have one on Nike. It's looking all unfaded, but it's Nike I have one too. I like Nike a lot, right? As a brand. But Colin, the name of the documentary is Watch Colin in Black and White, right? Only watch this documentary yet. Spoiler alerts, right? If you didn't watch it yet. Give yourself a time to watch it and come back to this point in the podcast, right? I thought they would have given some more insight into what Colin Kaepernick was going through, his mindset, his decision making, his upbringing, because that book from Kevin Hart took us from when he was small, the issues he had with his father, growing up with his mother who was so strict, all the scheduling thing his mother used to have him doing and so on, and how those things helped him to become one of the, everybody acknowledges him as the hardest working comedian in show business and all that. So it showed a certain progression from when he was small to when he gets to be this mega star that he is now, right? So I thought that when I watched Colin Kaepernick show, I would get a good understanding of what he went through, who he is, what's his background and all that coming up to the point of what was his state of mind when he get rejected from the NFL and blacklisted, if you want to call it that. And I wanted to see the behind the scenes of when he, if you all remember, there was a time when Colin Kaepernick got a trial. It was just after Jay-Z had taken over a role in the NFL. And they had a trial for Colin Kaepernick. And last minute, he changed his stadium and he said his own cameras had to be there. So I thinking if your own cameras had to be there, all that is for the documentary. I want to say that this is the single worst documentary I've ever seen in my life. I need a boo button. It's the worst. I don't know how people like this because it's highly rated and everybody talking about Colin and it's Eva. What's the woman name? Is Eva DuVernay the woman name? I feel like calling the wrong person name. Shonda Rhimes. One of the writers of very big series and things coupled with Kaepernick. So you're thinking it's going to be epic. Listen, this thing is the most primary school version of anything I've ever watched. It cheesy, the acting poor, and I'm not talking Squid Games cheesy acting where it have you on the edge of your seat and you're still interested in seeing what's going on. Colin Kaepernick singing false and fake. He did give a lot of knowledge and stuff about the history of black and white in America. Colin Kaepernick said, or showed in his show, where he grew up with two white parents because he was adopted, right? But I wonder how his parents feel about this documentary, because I find that it make his parents look very, very insensitive to the black experience. And maybe that was how he felt. But I do feel, if it was my parents, you see, my mother and my father, they could have do me all kind of things, yes, but I don't see myself making a public declaration, airing them out like that. And basically making your parents look in a lot of ways like them was the enemy of your progress. Listen, I don't know if I was the only person who felt this way watching this, but I feel like the man just sunning out his parents, making them look culturally inept and foolish in a lot of areas, while they were supporting him. They were behind him and supporting him 100%. It just looked, I didn't like the way it looked, boy. I didn't like the way it come across. I do find it reeked of victimhood, and I hate to use that word because he would have found himself in very unfortunate circumstances, and I'm not discounting that because he was clearly the best in his high school, whatever you call it, division or whatever, and wasn't getting selected. It's probably because he was black and he was wearing his hair. I think it was either cane row or something, so the parents had a problem with, or whatever it was. And there's no doubt that he would have been discriminated against. All the way up to now, I still feel the blacklist Colin Kaepernick, and he was the better quarterback for San Francisco for sure. Alex Smith was alright, but Colin Kaepernick was way better. And he way better than a lot of the quarterbacks in the league now. Meaning watch a game yet, I've any Patriots. Anyway, I don't get that. But having gone through everything that he went through, and also seeing the way, I never liked the way that change at the practice venue came across when he get the opportunity. Now, he probably have valid reasons for that, right? The thing was, the scouts, the NFL was supposed to send scouts to a stadium and watch Colin Kaepernick do a walkthrough, or so similar to what they do when they're now going into the league. I didn't even know they do that, called a combine for the lower levels as well, where you had to come in and do specific plays, you had to run a certain distance, jump. So he did say, and I agree with him there, where they put it like a show pony. And my experience going to museums that deal with slavery is something that we might never feel comfortable doing, show ponying up ourselves like that, because that was what was happening to us when they wanted to buy us, sometimes buy us, separate us from our parents, and you're selling a slave. And I had to, remember 21 years a slave? 12 years a slave. 12 years a slave. I just extend the time. In 12 years a slave. They show you one of them where they came to buy, and they tell the boy run and jump and those types of things to see how strong you are. They check it in your mouth. And those are not things I feel black people as a race will ever be comfortable with. And the combine is one of those things where you have to go and show yourself. And then you have a white man on top of that telling you, well, you ain't quick enough, you ain't fast enough, you might be able to play somewhere else, but you might be smart enough to play quarterback. So I could see where that, as a professional footballer who already proved yourself in the league, that whole process of coming to see what you could do and prod and probe and that kind of thing would have been triggering for him. I could see that. But I also felt like, well, don't do it. Because when you change the venue to somewhere they were saying was 2 hours away, everybody had to go across there. It kind of came across to me as you were more interested in fighting than coming to a solution or walking away. And he have every right to do that, but I just find that documentary was like that I don't know how to find a word better than victimhood, but it was like everything that was happening was to show you white people wicked bad and we are nowhere to go in life. And even if that is true, I don't think it is, but even if that is true, I worry about the mentality. For myself, if I start thinking like that, I feel I go accomplish less. This is me personally. I always go with it thinking that, listen, I could accomplish whatever. Yes, I could do whatever I want. I will strive, I will work hard. I know they have barriers. I know there are plenty of things against me, but I want to wake up every day in the mode where I could figure out how to get past those things. And I appreciate people like him who are willing to not just do the work for themselves, like what I suggested. I want to do the work for myself to get past that, is myself and my family. But they willing to take a knee, literally, when they already, as Dave Chappelle had said, his belly full. And he thought about us. He trying to work on changing the whole system. And I don't know if this documentary was one of the first steps in doing this. I hope it continues to, because one of the reasons I'm so sour about the documentary is the thing stopped before he reached the NFL. They just stopped short. I didn't believe it done. So I don't know if there was season 2. If there was season 2 and 3, I'm definitely watching it, because outside of the way it come across as victimhood to me, I want to see how they treat in this show with what happened in the NFL. What happened with that blacklisting and blackballing? How you cope with the time? What was that meeting with Nike like when they tell you we sticking with you and they come out of that campaign saying we standing with Kaepernick? What was it like meeting with Jay-Z if that ever happened? And things like that. But I do feel like if that series come out of... It's like another way to protest rather than a story that gives us a lot of information about what went on. But that's just me. I hope you enjoy it. If you enjoy it, tell me. Maybe I missed it and I'll watch it again. I might come back next week and say the exact opposite. You know me. Secondly, I see Jay-Z create a whole Instagram page. And he was never on Instagram before. I remember him some years ago going on Twitter and say, boy, I can't do this because it's impossible to respond to all these people. He tried to respond to some tweets and okay. So Jay-Z finally joined Instagram and make one, he only follow one person, was Beyonce he following. That's the only person he was following. And he make one post and the post was, harder they fall. Now I know something was wrong, I promised myself after Marlon Wayans make a movie named Sextuplets. I was watching Breakfast Club and I see Marlon Wayans talking about sextuplets on the movie and there's a woman who make a sextuplets is like 6 children or something like that. Whatever it was. It's the worst movie I ever seen in my life. And next Netflix thing again, it is the worst. And I watching the comments about people saying it's so funny and this show is so great and it's highly rated. And Marlon Wayans on the Breakfast Club saying this is my best work so far. Everybody, Keenan Ivory Wayans and Kim, I think it is, telling them, nah, Marlon, you really hit it out the park with this one. You had some misses and them and saying is the greatest. He also said that about his stand-up special, which was no good to me. So I didn't like it at all. And I always taken these promo things and running to watch the movie like a fool. And I watched the whole of Sextuplets saying, nah, man, like I lost in brain cells. This can't be what people saying so good. I went on the Instagram and reading the comments under the thing to say, wait, people actually enjoying this? This can't be right. So I was a little wary with this harder they fall thing. Now, where I want to give credit, right, is Jay-Z was involved in the making of the movie. And the director of the movie was black. I want to get all the right information, because the fellow name is James, is Jeymes. So I don't know if it's James or James. James Samuel, right, is the director and the writer of the show. And Boaz Yakin is handling the screenplay, giving everybody the credit. And Jay-Z was in some way involved in this, or I don't know exactly what his role was, but he come on Instagram to post this. And that's when I say, you know what? Something is fishy here. Something rotten in the state of Denmark. When Jay-Z created an Instagram page to promote something he do. These are people who don't have to promote much that they do. Remember that his wife dropped album in the middle of the night and you wake up and you see in your phone Beyonce drop her album and it sell 1 million copies. Right? So they don't have to promote anything they do. They typically don't promote anything they do. They don't do no interviews. They ain't doing no... Them don't do nothing. Whoever they put out, they done win already. So shaky, I say, all right, how did they fall? I started to see Barrington Levy now, and people started to say, boy, Barrington Levy, the song track, all these streams going up and things. So now I'm even more interested. So salute to them for including Barrington Levy and Dennis Brown in the song track for the movie. And not just including as an integral part of the movie. So I take my time and I say, right, I have to line up this and find the right environment, turn up my TV hard. If you see how hard my TV is, my neighbor here on my TV, because I say, this had to be a classic, a black western. I don't like it already. Black western, directed by black people, Jay-Z involved, Barrington Levy, and Dennis Brown on the soundtrack. We cannot go wrong here. Lucky, what the man name? Lucky Stanfield. What you name? He was in Get Out. Idris Elba, Regina King. I say we can't go wrong here. This is goat territory. Delroy. What Delroy name? Delroy now. I say I'm taking in this. Let me tell you some more that show. Spoiler alert too, if you didn't see it yet, circle back, right? That show is sanitation garbage. Boy, listen, I'm watching this show. And then listen, it starts off with a vibe. Because early out in the movie, it's gangsterism one time. They didn't waste no time to get to the hardcore part. And I as a man, apparently I like a lot of violence. According to my son, I like a lot of violence and so on in movies. You know what I mean? A lot of cussing. But it starts off extra bored. And listen, Barrington Levy kicking hard on my speakers. Listen, when you do listen to the show, turn on your speakers hard. Get some good speakers. Don't watch it on them little TV speakers. Get some good and put it on hard. When you hear Barrington kicking, It's bad. And they just use Barrington and no background. The Barrington is a big part of the show. But boy, let me tell you something. That show is garbage. I watching this and I saying, but wait. Why is it so simplistic? Everything just simple. And like Stacey says, like they try to remake a Django. No, Django is one of the greatest movies ever created. I've watched Django 100 times. But it's more like if Django was not Spielberg. What is my name again? Quentin Tarantino. But it's more like Hateful Eight than Django is. There's no slavery or nothing involved in that. A matter of fact, it paint black people in a real good light too. Let me say that. Because it was just black. The sheriff black, the criminal black, everybody black in the show, right? Very few white people. Are there any white people? As if I can remember seeing no white people. If there had any, it was very few. But the show, it have a decent plot, I think. I like the story behind it. So a young boy, they come in and they kill his parents at the beginning of the show. Spoiler alerts, right? And then he grew up to seek revenge for his parents dying. He catch the first one very early in the show and kill him in a dread kind of way too. I like that. I like how that happened. And then he had to go for the next one. The next one lock up. They break him out of jail. It always looking like it want to be good. But I don't know if they didn't have enough time, like if they fall short of time or something went wrong. But the story was just real flat. It have a halfway comedy vibes too. Like you see how Django had a slight comedy effect to it. Same thing with Hateful Eight. It had a slight comedic thing. But they failed to build the mystery in the show. That thing was garbage. I didn't like that at all. I hope all like it. If all enjoy it, tell me. Because I could be wrong. You know? I don't know. But they waste my time with this Harder They Fall. I mean, thank God Narcos come back out. The Mexico season in Narcos is back on these streets. So I'm going to take in that for sure. Hopefully I have time and I'm done recording to go and take in a few episodes. But I'm back to Narcos in Mexico. I want to see what Miguel Felix have going on, or El Chapo and them fellas. And that is the only thing that's going to redeem Netflix here. You see, if I watch out Narcos and I run straight into a new season of Ozark, all you back on the list. But so far, it's garbage. Because I try with Peaky Blinders. That is garbage. I don't know what I'll always be watching when I'm watching Peaky Blinders. I try with the what's the one with the biker people and there's some drug people, all of them riding bike that's garbage. I can't get too far in that at all. So if it's Narcos by Ozark, after that I'm done with Netflix, because this Harder They Fall was a good try. It looked like it wanted to be something, but that was not it. But a salute to everybody involved, because it's still good to see so much black people in our show. Black people in control. Remember I was talking about last week about representation matters. I do feel like if the cinematography on the movie was aces, it was really good to look at. And the soundtrack for the movie is crazy. I'm talking about outside of Barrington and Dennis Brown. The soundtrack for the movie itself was something else. If nothing else, don't take me on in terms of how bad the movie was, because it was bad. But take it in for the soundtrack itself. And it's not just the reggae parts of it. It looked like if they was trying to make the reggae in the show into how like country and western music was a part of westerns back in the day. But I hope that they do more of it, even though this was trash. But if they do more of this, so they take different genres and make it into more of a black experience, because we grew up watching Good, the Bad and the Ugly and trying to connect with Clint Eastwood and these people, which was also trash. That show wasn't good at all. So this falls right in line with all the other movies. That was a waste of time that we grew up thinking that these fellas was legends, Clint Eastwood and them playing western thing, and our parents watching that. The reason that those things become legendary is because of the only thing on TV. That nothing else. They was just fascinated by the TV itself, not the show itself. So I'm hoping that they take different genres, because Get Out give you a kind of comedy horror. This one give you a slight comedy western. So if we have more of those things, I think generations after us coming up looking at the world differently. And they find some actors in this one too. So you used to say limited black actors, but you're looking like more and more people there. And I'm hoping that when they do different versions of this, they could also get the Jamie Foxxes and the Denzel Washingtons, and they already have Idris Elba here. The quote-unquote top tier of black actors, if I could say that, to be a part of these movies, to lift the profile of these things. Like what Tyler Perry was doing in his studio, we have to have our own version of Ocean's 8 and Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 12 and 13, where we pull together a cast of the mega stars and get all of them together. Or our version of Heat, where we pull together, you see how they had Al Pacino and Robert De Niro in Heat? If we get a black version of that, where you have our top black actors coming together and being villain and hero and villain and that kind of thing, maybe Will Smith, maybe if he survived this debacle, yeah, him versus Denzel as a sort of square off. But anyway, salute to the people who make harder. They follow us garbage. But I like it a lot, and I will be there. But I'm looking forward to Narcos, and I'm sorry for the white-centric, but Narcos is Mexico, so that ain't bad. But Ozark is as white as it gets, but that's the one I'm looking forward to. Alright, one thing I recommend that you're taking is an interview on Kanye West on Drink Champs with Nori and DJ EFN. It's a more rock back kind of podcast. Them fellas on them drinking heavy, smoking heavy. But Kanye West, they get him to open up and talk, and he was as candid as it gets. Zachary reminded me that he changed his name to Ye. He's no longer Kanye. But it is a real good episode because genius level people. He's a genius in business, in creativity, in the arts, in music, in production and everything. And just getting a chance to listen to him talk for such a long time and open up like that was something else to listen to. So if you're into that kind of thing, you had to take it now. Now, as I mentioned, Zachary, he done storming on the last episode, right? So before we get out of here, we're going to look at some music. I'm going to bring this man back. Come. I'm going to bring this man back now.
It's good to be back.
Nobody asked you to say nothing. Come around. What are you always laughing about?
I don't know. I just like to laugh a lot.
You know what I bring you here for?
What?
You come in the middle playing some parang in the beginning of the episode and storming. I didn't even know you came into the room.
Yes.
So I come to ask you now to tell us, for the listeners, if you like your parang music.
Yes.
Boy, go on your own mic. You like parang? You enjoy it?
Okay. Not as good as rap, but yes, parang is good. And by the way, Kanye West did legally change his name to E. So.
Isn't easy, so slow down.
Okay.
So what rap you like? Like what rappers?
How much? Okay, I like rappers like Lil Durk, Lil Baby.
Come around.
Lil Durk, Lil Baby, Da Baby, of course, Roddy Ricch.
I mean, of course, Roddy Ricch. Nobody don't know who's Roddy Ricch.
I think all of you guys watching the podcast right now know who's Roddy Ricch. Comment this timestamp in the comments if you know who's Roddy Ricch.
What Roddy Ricch sing?
The box.
How is it go?
Pulling at the poop in the lot. Jump, 12, swat, busting at the bears out of the box. I just hit a link with the box. Had to put a stick in the box.
All right. Because I'm singing so PG now, so you should be listening to one that are cussing right through it. So you laughing at, so you be listening to cussing?
No, I listen to the clean version or something.
Yeah, you could tell me it's the clean version. Alright, so for Soca Parang now, what are some of you? Tell me one of your favorite songs that you want us to play to close the episode.
We parangin'. Don't worry, house. I going down by Tanti results. We parangin'.
So that's one of your favorite parang songs?
Yes.
Capitan.
What is this, gang signs? Is that gang signs?
Munchies monster, yes I'm roaming in Trinidad. We call it haranguing. Munchies monster, increased hunger. Ice my ham and turkey, uncles making wine. It's Christmas time.
Who sang this song?
Uni Macano on Spencer. Mighty host, I going down by Tanti for South. We parangin'. Down by the street, they were up. We parangin'. And ham and meat and turkey. We parangin'.
This is how we do it in a
Trinidad, yeah.
Christmas is in quarantine with the COVID-19. Why when I parang pass, they got to wear their mask when they coming from Jeddah. One thing you must make sure, sanitize them.
Is it middle fingers you playing, huh?
No, it's one
Oh.
We paranging down by the house. I going down by tanky for so.
We paranging.
All right. Because you're going to deafen somebody in this thing now. Tell me what's one of your other favorites.
Paranging with we mouth slash
When
talking
tomorrow
par.
gets what crackers in my house, apart in your hands, in your hands, sing the chorus with I. La 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 la. Espanol like a taco, but I still go try to do it for you if you sing the chorus with I. La 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 la. Let me sing. La 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 la.
Keep your jersey down, please.
La 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 la.
Keep your jersey down, please.
La 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 la.
The abs.
What?
The abs.
What? Is that not telling you?
Do not raise up that jersey.
Not even a shot. Then the hire me and the balance man to come like she goes to
You don't know lyrics.
Oi. I know lyrics. When
Say she money done spend already and people waiting all day. So they better play some
music bar now.
Beating all day.
So me box this man start to sing for them.
Bang, boom, boom, bang, boom.
And then me shot come in.
Talk.
And when the watch show.
Do.
That is what we shout. As we parang in the remote. This was a bad idea.
People get up and start to dance when
We
they hear
did
the
just
music
dance
and
in the house, man. Oh boy.
Now I start to feel like we get away
Alright, let's play.
Cindy, tell me all you just feel all the bright, or all you feel that we dumb. All that music, all you singing, up to now I ain't hear no rhythm. So me triangle till start to sing for them. And then the talk on me.
Talk.
And when they come down.
Oh, that is what we shout. Cause we paranging with we mouth.
So you want to hear one of my favorite when I was small, no?
Yes.
So I say yes like that for.
Because I want to hear it. Oh, this is what my favorite too.
You know this?
Yes, bring on the camera. It was early Christmas morning.
Hey, slow down.
Wait, 3, 2, 1. It was early Christmas morning and I was lying in my bed. I hear a call. It was neighbor Mildred. She looking for some hungry.
Please don't say I'm greedy, but I ain't.
Yes,
My husband gone by the mother and left me in a jam. Look my belly in my hand. Neighbor give me pizza ham.
Neighbor, oi. Bring out the farm.
Neighbor, aye.
Bring out the farm.
Neighbor, oi.
Bring out the
ham.
beef.
Neighbor, aye.
Bring out the beef. Bring out the meat. Bring out the beef.
All right.
Christmas. Bring out the meat. Oi.
All right, bye.
Make time no snap.
All right, bye. Tell everybody bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, I want to leave one song with Ole before I go. Let's see the kind of energy overload we gotta be dealing with in these streets. The man say you want to play song, you get to play song. Nobody can say he can come on, right? But I want to leave Ole with one song, and I'm dedicating this to Will and Jada because two of them clearly understand what it's like to be able to share the wealth, right? They understand the sharing of wealth. So for everybody who share wealth and they know what it is, this song is for you.
I tell you it must have got the time. Hear this song. Well, my partner reached down by me with a big gang.
Yes.
One big parang band. Christmas Eve, man. About 15 big man packed up inside 2 van.
If you see humans, real confusion. So me and me madam Joy, we start to entertain the boys. But one song that the lead singer decide to sing, well that mash up the whole flipping thing. But you want to spread joy for the Christmas, get joy for the Christmas, real joy for the Christmas. Can't be my madam, me singing about show joy for the Christmas, no joy for the Christmas, oh joy for the Christmas. Well, I done ready to bust him out. Them trying to convince me, hear me nothing, but I rush him soon as he mouth open. You know why? You can't steal my joy this Christmas.
Yes.
Not my joy. No, you can't feel my joy this Christmas. Look here, boy. Not my joy. Christmas is a time for plenty liming and greeting, but before you get a Yuletide beating, adios, amigos. Take your paranderos and vamos. Boy, you can't touch my joy this Christmas. Not my joy.
Jada will spread joy this Christmas.
Leave here, boy. Want to he boy. Like he want to mash up this party with this timing song. Them fellas mad, yes?
Die.
Well, the food, the drinks, and the furniture scatter. And my partner asking what's the matter. I say tell you singer be very careful, cause that song he pull real disrespectful. Never before in my life in front me a man tackle my wife. Them telling me to take it like let them explain, but the dopest singer start to sing again. How he want to spread joy for the Christmas, get joy for the Christmas, real joy for the Christmas. Well, I felt a blow to pussy head. Show joy for the Christmas, no joy for the Christmas, oh joy for the Christmas. Like he want me get real dread, talking about I taking the song out of context, but I just want to ring the singer neck. Cause you can't steal my joy this Christmas.
Not my joy.
No, you wouldn't feel no joy this Christmas. Look here, boy. Not my joy. Everybody does free up themselves at Christmas time, but before I commit a Christmas crime, adios, amigos, vaya con Dios, vamos. Boy, you can't touch my joy this Christmas.
Not my joy.
Don't even watch my joy this Christmas. Leave here, boy. Up to them, boy. And playing there, no
Bam. Listen, place open back up. Everybody, we have freedom. Don't let nobody steal your joy, Mr. Shaxi. And let me take care of yourself and take it easy. You know, he's got a lot hard with the freedoms. I wonder if the SOE ending also mean the beaches and rivers and everything open. If that is the case, let me just go easy on it. Let me take care of yourself. For those all you who vaccinated, those all you who healthy and fit and strong, all you good. If you know you're not in that category, be even more careful. Take care of yourself and take care of those who love you. I will talk to you all next week.